Hi everyone, welcome to the penultimate recording of Poems That Changed Me. There's only one more installment of 2021. However, as you may know by now, 2022 is going to be very exciting. I have a number of phenomenal poets, advocates of poetry, and other really interesting writers lined up to do their own poems that changed me. January is going to feature people like Sharon Old, Arthur Z, Jane Hirschfield. It's going to be really cool. Much more interesting than this guy talking about poems that changed him. I'm going to continue December though, considering it Holy Month, and I'm reading poems that I think of as holy, that are sort of in concert with what we in the West consider maybe the Christmas season, or poems that sort of attend to Western Christian themes, not because it's privileging Western ideology or the colonial project, but poems that seem to be intentionally supporting or undermining the prominence of those themes. And this is one of my all-time favorite poems, and one of my favorite poems to teach, and a poem that actually did change a lot for me. It's called Goodtime Jesus by the great poet James Tate. It's a prose poem. Goodtime Jesus. I can't think of a better poem to talk about during the week of Christmas than this one. Jesus got up one day a little later than usual. He had been dreaming so deep there was nothing left in his head. What was it? A nightmare. Dead bodies walking all around him, eyes rolled back, skin falling off. But he wasn't afraid of that. It was a beautiful day. How about some coffee? Don't mind if I do. Take a little ride on my donkey. I love that donkey. Hell, I love everybody. I can't read that poem without laughing, and I can never decide what the best / funniest line is in that poem. I think it might be take a little ride on my donkey. But that is, of course, rivaled by I love that donkey and how about some coffee. My students don't always really know what to do with this poem. And one of the questions I always ask is, what makes this a poem? And I think the answer to that question is one of the ways in which this poem was transformative for me, because it really eschews all of the hallmarks of what makes a poem a poem. It's a prose poem, there are no line breaks, there's no rhyme, it's irreverent. It doesn't do anything a traditional poem is supposed to do, except alter how you think about the world. And it also, strangely enough, makes you attuned to language. Not language in the sort of on the high register, but rather in the low register. And I actually, when I teach this poem, I often pair it with the poem I did last week, Jordan Manley Hopkins' The Wind Hover, because I actually think that both poems attend to Jesus appropriately for the time in which they were written. Tate's poem was written in the 80s, and I think that it reflects a sort of contemporary, non-reverential way of thinking about Jesus. And in some ways, this poem reminds me of Goodtime Jesus, or I forget the name, the Happy Jesus, or the Freewheeling Jesus, that George Carlin playing a priest talks about in that movie of with the angels, and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, this sort of easygoing, freewheeling Jesus. One of the things my students always talk about with this poem is it actually does some work that the Bible tries to do with Jesus, in that it makes Jesus relatable. Jesus is not curing people, he's not turning one basket of fish into a lot of baskets of fish. He's just a regular guy doing regular things. And that makes the poem refreshing, it makes it surprising, it perhaps makes it irreverent, but that doesn't make it any less important. I also think that this poem, despite its seemingly laissez-faire tone, is actually expertly crafted. I think that is really an important aspect of the poem. Not a word is wasted, nothing is off, it's just right. And so the way this poem sort of goes high and low, looks backward and forward, is both irreverent and welcoming, is something that's really hard to achieve and something that Tate was a master of. And in all these ways, this is an absolutely transformative poem.